The streak is over. Thank the good Lord, the Rangers' 9-game losing streak is over, and they ended it with a feisty, fiery, one-run win in Houston. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Wednesday, September 7th. Your Rangers are 59-76, just 1 win away from tying last year's win total. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. Now, let's get into this game. It was a massive win. It felt like a just completely different win, not just one of those, innocuous, doesn't mean anything, you whoop-de-frickin-do wins. This team was in a rough space. 9 straight losses. The starting pitching staff is just an absolute mess. They just lost a 1-run game that felt like their best chance to snap this streak in the game before, in a 1-0 loss to the Astros, where Martin Perez pitched beautifully, absolutely beautifully, and the only reason the runs scored was because of a poor throw by Bubba Thompson. That's pretty much the only reason the Astros even had a run on the board against Martin Perez, who has been just absolutely phenomenal this season. But the Rangers really came up huge in this one. They got on the board with a 2-run double by Ezequiel Duran. They scored another run on an error. Sam Huff singled to Jose Altuve, and a throwing error by Jose Altuve allowed Ezequiel Duran to score. The Rangers had a 3-0 lead in that second inning, and it was Glenn Otto on the hill, the Houston kid, the former Rice Owl, who didn't have a great outing, but had a good enough outing. He allowed 1 run in each of the next 3 innings, to where when he was pulled from the game after 4 innings, he had given up 3 runs, and the game was tied 3-3. The Rangers didn't do a whole lot in those middle innings, but they were able to scratch off 1 run in that 7th inning, and it was thanks to some scrappy hustle play and a walk by Mathias. Mathias was able to work a walk with a full count, had a runner on third base. That runner was Corey Seager, who was actually on base because he absolutely hustled out of the box on a ball hit to, I believe it was the pitcher, somewhere in that first base line. He was just hustling out. It was an Arizona chopper, as they call it, just bounced right off in front of the plate, and he was sprinting his butt off to get there. He did some smart base running to get all the way over to third, and then on that wild pitch, Mathias has not worked a whole lot of walks in his short major league career so far, but he just had 4 entering the game before this one, which was a huge one. It was a wild pitch that got away from Martin Maldonado. Corey Seager read it extremely well and hustled his butt all the way down to score and give the Rangers a 1-run lead. They would desperately need, finally get them a lead. They hopefully would not have given up. And when you went to the pen, by the way, I got to commend Corey Seager for hustling on this play. Corey Seager is one of those baseball players that makes everything look super easy, does not look like he's trying very hard. That does not to say that he isn't trying very hard, but he's not a guy who usually hustles, very hard down every single routine ground ball to first base, which I honestly think gets overblown, the importance of that. I think people look a little bit too much about that. Like, oh, well, if they don't do that, then they don't care. There's 162 games. There are a lot of routine grounders to shortstop, to second base, to third base, even, heck, to first base. And hustling out every single one, a lot of times that's how hamstring injuries happen. That's how you get a lot more wear and tear on your body. He is saving himself. He's a guy who's had a lot of injury issues. He's not been able to be consistently on the field. He's done well when he's been on there, but there's not been a season where he's played more than 150 games since his rookie year back in 2016. And I think he is learning how to take care of his body, how to give max effort when it's necessary, and save himself a little bit of of trouble, a little bit of hassle, a little bit of wear and tear on his body because he has been so healthy this year. He's got 129 games played this year. I feel like he's missed maybe 7 if my math is right. It might not be, but it's not any more than 10-ish games. He has been very consistent for the Rangers. They have needed his bat in there. He has been a constant force for this Rangers offense. And, his bat's been a little bit quiet as of late, but he is still doing the little things to help this team win. And this is a team that has not been winning as of late. It's been a rough way. I think one of the guys who got dinged for that not hustling balls out a whole lot to first base was the third baseman Manny Machado. When he was with the Dodgers, he got a lot of flack for that, and I'm pretty sure he had some hamstring injuries. Another guy who had hamstring injuries but did hustle a whole lot to first base, and I think that made it worse, was Nelson Cruz. There were a couple of times where I think him hustling out a little bit more than he should have made those hamstrings worse. He missed significant time with the Ranger for several years with those hammy issues, so I think that it is smart to not always just gun it 110%, but to know there are situations where you need to do that, and he is doing that. This Rangers club was just giving it all in this one. They were really aggressive in this. We saw that with I was about to say Jorge Alfaro. No, Adolis Garcia going out to right field to try and rob a home run from Jose Altuve, who has absolutely crushed the Rangers. He's got a 1034 OPS in 13 games against Texas this season. Thankfully, they will only play old Jose Altuve one more time. That is tonight. We'll talk about who the starting pitcher is in that and how excited I am about that person finally getting back and healthy. And then we also saw in the ninth inning, which I was a little bit critical of Marcus Semien for this play in the ninth inning. He was able to reach on a double. Corey Seager popped out the very next at bat, so he was on second base with one out, and he wanted to get over to third base so that Nathaniel Lowe could score him with just any kind of out to the outfield. But I think he was a little bit aggressive. He did get a good jump, but it's Martin Maldonado back there behind the plate, and he is a very good defensive catcher with a very, very good arm. And the guy at the plate is a lefty, so you don't have that same blockage, that same interference, that, well, not actual bad interference, but incidental batter interference of a right-handed hitter and being in between the catcher and third base, making that throw to third base a little bit harder. The side's wide open, and also it's Nathaniel Lowe. Nathaniel Lowe, I believe, already had multiple hits at that point and had reached on a walk. He is one of the hottest hitters on the planet right now, and I think that spot of being a little aggressive might have been too much, but I don't fault him. He did get a good jump, but maybe once Nathaniel Lowe, if he still grounds out there, well, again, if he had grounded out there, it would have been one out, and Marcus Semien would have been on third base, and then Adolis Garcia, Mr. Close and late, would have been up with a runner at third base with a chance for an insurance run. Maybe that would have worked out a little bit better, but I still do like the hustle. Maybe not in that scenario, but I get where his head was at, and that hustle has really gotten the Rangers a lot, including in this game very early, like we saw in that seventh inning where they were able to score that run. Anyway, we're going to get into a little bit more of this game, a fun post-game thing that happened with Tony Beasley, and some really, really great news for the Rangers on the injury front. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's great joys. And guess what? There is a new flavor. Are you ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right, Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite. Cookie dough chunk puff has a light, chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of actually making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to Built.com to snag yourself a box for you and the family. It'll be the perfect treat. Or if you can find a really good hiding place, you might want to hide these for yourself because they are just that good. What's great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, provides a ton of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good, and it's good for you. You're going to love these new cookie dough chunk puffs, whether you get it as a snack, a workout, or you just need a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at Built.com. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Dusty Baker, his family owns a winery in California. They make lovely wines. I have not tried them for myself. I really need to go check out and see if I can go find them at a local wine store. But free of charge, Dusty Baker gave Tony Beasley a bottle of wine from his vineyard, actually a couple bottles of wine. And before the game, Tony Beasley told the reporters that were in Houston, which makes me wish that I actually went to Houston, which is a very rare thing for me to say about that city. But he said, you know what? If we win tonight, we'll bust out this wine and we'll each take a sip, which is very fun. And you know what? He was counting on it because before the game, he went up to Dusty Baker and said, quote, "We're going to kick your butt tonight, and I'm going to drink your wine." That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. That is the kind of attitude you want from a manager, a guy to get his guys fired up to, even when they're in a 9-game skid, to go out there and tell the opposing manager of one of the best teams in baseball, you know what, we're going to kick your butt and I'm going to drink that wine that you gave me as a present because maybe you felt sorry for me or maybe you're just being a genuinely nice human being. Doesn't matter. I'm going to kick your butt and drink your wine anyway. And that was absolutely delightful. By the way, it should be said, it probably should have been said before the last game that this is the first time before the first series that these two played while Tony Beasley took over, which I believe was last week. But that was the first time this season, and this game on Wednesday, today, as you're listening to this, or maybe the day after, whatever, is going to be the last time that two black managers face off against each other, unless the Dodgers and Astros meet in the World Series, which give me a little bit of PTSD. Hope somebody can knock off these Astros in the playoffs. But there's just not that many black managers in Major League Baseball. It is just Dave Roberts and Dusty Baker. And for now, we also add Tony Beasley to that list as an interim manager. Maybe he will be the full-time manager starting next year, but who knows? This was just a fun attitude, and it felt like it was being managed like it was a game 6 of the playoffs. I was watching a little bit of the Orioles game versus the Blue Jays. The Orioles have lost a couple. They are still fighting for their playoff lives, and there was a little bit of a kerfuffle in that game, and you could kind of tell. Of course, Ragans Odor was on that team, gives them that fiery spirit, and we talked about how the Rangers need an Ian Kinsler type, a Ragans Odor type, the person, not necessarily the player, to like get this team fired up and like that. And Tony Beasley kind of provided a little bit of that. But anyway, those two teams in the AL East were playing like it was Game 6 of an ALCS or a World Series, and the Rangers kind of managed this one like that too, because they had been on such a long, prolonged streak of losing, because it had not been a whole lot of close games, because they had a mostly fresh pen. They were able to take Glenn Otto a little bit out of this game early, even though he was only at 80 pitches. There were a lot of very hard-fought pitches. Each one of those second and third innings, and fourth innings, I should say, were all just pretty tough on him. He was working, throwing a lot of pitches. I got to give him a lot of credit. The strikeout stuff has been pretty darn good as of late, and he's been getting a little bit better with the walks. Only had 1 walk in his 4 innings here. Only 2 of his 3 runs were earned, and he did strike out 5. That's coming off 8 strikeouts in 5 innings in Boston his last time out in that game. The Rangers completely blew last week. But the Rangers, I was surprised when Jesus Tinoco came in the 7th inning. Taylor Hearn has to get a lot of credit in this one. He worked 2 very important innings, not a whole lot of drama. Shutout, did not allow a single walk. Did strike out 2 in those innings and allowed just 2 hits. Not any drama from him. Provided that bridge to the back end of the bullpen in a very, very big spot against a very good Houston Astros team. But the Rangers tried out Jesus Tinoco right when they get that 1-run lead, and I thought, okay, I did not think that this is how this is going to go. But to his credit, he bent but didn't break, allowed a hit and a walk, got a pair of outs, but once he allowed those 2 base runners, Matt Moore came in, worked an inning and a third of perfect baseball, was able to get to that 9th inning. Instead of Jonathan Hernandez, he was getting a mental day off. The Rangers went to Jose Leclerc, and he shut it down, worked around a leadoff walk without too much drama, just a little bit of drama. He had to face off against Yordan Alvarez, who was the final batter of this game, which always should make you nervous. And then if they didn't get him, they would be up to Alex Bregman. This was just a really tough way to close it out. But no drama, no drama for him at all. The Rangers were able to get their 11th win in a one-run game. They are still very bad in one-run games, but you know what? A little bit better is all you can ask for. They're 11-29. If they can hold off getting that 30th one-run loss throughout the end of the season, I will be extremely grateful. It will still be a horrible season in those close games. I do think that should still be chalked up to luck, but the Rangers got to win when they needed it, and that is really, really the most important thing. Coming up, we're going to look at some really, really great injury news for the Rangers and a little bit of what this rotation might look like with a 7-game in 6-day stretch coming up. But first, this word from our sponsors. So the best news comes right now, the immediate good news, I should say. Maybe some better news later on. But Cole Ragans is off the IL. He will start on this Wednesday game. The Rangers really, really need him to come up and be effective. He has been okay in his 3 starts for now, but I'm really glad 4 starts, I should say. 18 and a third innings in those 4 starts, a 4.42 ERA. It's been really, really walk heavy. 4 home runs in those 18 innings and 10 home runs to just 9 strikeouts. He has not been. The whip is really bad, or the FIP, I should say, is really bad, because those are the 3 things that FIP is concerned with, and it just really does not like him at all. He's got a 660 fielding independent pitching, an ERA plus of 90. He's been able to work out some of these tough jams, but he's been a little timid throwing strikes, and, you know, I kind of get it. When you've given up 4 home runs in 4 starts, that might make anyone timid, but he's been pitching against really tough opponents. He has not had it easy. He has not had, just the run-of-the-mill, nobody terrible major league teams that he's faced off against. He's faced off against the White Sox, Houston. Granted, he did have 1 game against Oakland, which was one of the 2 times that he did go 5 innings. But even then, he allowed a pair of home runs to them. And then he also started against Minnesota. Those are all, well, 3 of those 4 are very good teams, and now he's going to have to go into Houston again. The last time he was there, he did allow 5 runs in 4 and a third innings, including a pair of home runs. But honestly, for what this Houston Astros team is and what they're doing right now, how good they are, that's kind of an okay result, especially with what Houston Keuchel was able to do in his few results before they had to call, or when they had to call him up in the absence of Cole Ragans. I'm hoping that he can find that strike zone, be effective in that strike zone against Major League pitching, or against Major League hitting. I know that he can. He can be serviceable, and even a little less than serviceable is still better than what the Rangers have been getting so far at this point. But coming up, they've got a 7 games in 6-day stretch, including that stupid flyaway doubleheader on Monday against the Marlins. They've got a game at noon and a game at 6 p.m. I feel like they should just make that the wait 30 minutes and then start the next game kind of a game, as opposed to the doubleheader, because it's in between 2 home series. It makes no sense scheduling wise. They should have just put it on Thursday, or moved those games with the A's up a day, because I'm pretty sure they have an off day on Monday, and the Rangers could have done it on Thursday or maybe Wednesday. I don't know, but not like this. They come home to face the Blue Jays for 3 games, which hopefully we'll see Josh Young's Major League debut there. Then Josh Young can maybe fly off to the Marlins for that doubleheader, and then back home for 2 games against the A's. So right now, I'm thinking the rotation would probably stack up something like Dane Dunning on that Friday game against the Blue Jays, and then we might see Martin Perez on Saturday. Then on Sunday, I think we might see another Glenn Otto performance. Then I think that Monday is probably when we would see a Jon Gray. Maybe we'll see Jon Gray and I don't know at this point. This is kind of a rough stretch. They kind of almost need 6 starters. So let's see. Martin Perez was going on Saturday, and then Glenn Otto. Then we have Jon Gray, and maybe you give another start to Kohei Arihara, because he is there, and the Marlins are terrible. They are really terrible offensively, so maybe he can get you 4 or 5 innings. I think that might be the route that they go. And then and then we'll see. And then maybe we have Cole Ragans on that game against the A's on the 13th. That will have been 6-ish days. And then who knows? Honestly, who knows for that final game against the A's? Maybe that's a bullpen day. Maybe they call somebody up from AAA. There's not a whole lot of options there, and they have not had basically any success when they go to the bullpen game. They have won one game, and I think they've lost 8 or 9 games. It has just not been. It's not been great. It has just not been great in those bullpen games. But there is some good news. Jon Gray is hopefully coming off the IL. He is going to throw a bullpen today. He could come back off the IL without a rehab start. That would be huge for the Rangers. It would be huge. I really just said that, penciling him in for money without saying that he's coming off the IL fairly soon. If he does have to have a rehab start, that's going to be just cause a lot of problems for the Rangers. But somebody else who is going probably back on the IL, Brad Miller, has hip discomfort. He's back in Arlington, awaiting a decision, probably to put him on the IL, probably to make a roster move either today to bring up Cole Ragans. I don't think he's officially made the roster move to bring him up just yet, but I do think it's either going to happen then, or they're going to make a move on Friday when they hopefully call up Josh Young, or just maybe they're never going to call up Josh Young. I'm just going to forget that he exists and lose him in the Rule 5 for nothing. I don't know at this point. We'll see. But Young is playing right now in this afternoon game. He's DHing in Round Rock, so I am led to believe that he would probably be given a day off to come up and travel. They would tell him on Thursday, or maybe they tell him today, go home, pack your stuff, head up to Arlington. You're going to make your debut on Friday. Give him a day to get there, get acclimated, get familiar with Globe Life and all the coaches, whatever. Even though it is an off day, maybe they'll just give him a day to get his family travel arrangements and stuff. But they're all in the state of Texas. Well, Jace is not in the state of Texas. I forgot where exactly he's been assigned. He is off playing minor league baseball. But the rest of the family can come up for the major league debut this weekend. Hopefully, one of the final things that the Rangers really have to look forward to in a big, big way. But there is some other minor league news that I wanted to get to. Right-handed pitcher Mason Englert, this was just announced an hour ago. He's been named the South Atlantic Player Pitcher of the Month for August. He went 3-1 with a 1.82 ERA, only 5 earned runs in 24 and 2/3 innings pitched, a .086 opponent batting average. They only had 7 hits in 81 at-bats. He also struck out 21 over 4 starts before getting promoted to Double-A. That is very encouraging. Shout out to him. He is going to make his final home start for the Rough Riders, well, unless they make the playoffs. We'll see. Englert is going to be pitching on Friday night. We'll see how that goes with Frisco. That'll be very, very encouraging. And I also wanted to give a shout out to some old friends because it was a big night for some former Rangers. And I want to start with Lewis Brinson, who is back in the big leagues. He has been absolutely going ham for the San Francisco Giants. He's got 3 home runs for them in a 2-game span, all of those coming against the Dodgers in LA, which is just really, really impressive. He had been with the Marlins, with Milwaukee for 21 games back in 2017, but he'd been with his hometown Marlins from 2018 to 2021. He had not played in the bigs this year, but also his former Frisco teammate, actually I'm not sure they were there at the same time. They're former Hickory teammates, I should say. Joey Gallo also hit a 3-run bomb in that game, and Jorge Alfaro, who had been optioned, I believe, to AAA, came back up and hit another walk-off hit for San Diego and was embraced by Jerks and Profar. Just nice to see old guys having fun, doing good things, and we'll get back to the Rangers farm. I do want to give a shout out to Jack Leiter, who had another really solid start. His line looked a little bit worse than he actually was. He gave up 3 runs for the first time in a couple of months, but he was a little bit better than that line. He had 4 strikeouts in 13 pitches span. He allowed a walk and a home run to lead off that game, but then he struck out the next 4 batters on literally 13 pitches, literally one more than the absolute minimum, because he is just an absolute enigma. His final line was 4 innings, 3 runs, 4 earned, or 4 runs, 3 of those were earned, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Did allow the 1 home run. Got beat up a little bit towards the end of the start, but the middle of the start was fantastic. The beginning was rough, and that is an improvement on what he has been doing in the month of August and this first start in September. He might have, I think, one more start before the regular season ends. He might get a little bit more work in the playoffs should the Rough Riders make those playoffs in the Texas League. But really, really encouraging stuff to see him coming up like this at the end of the year. Cody Bradford has also been on an absolute tear in the month of August. We'll see if he continues it. I'm going to try and go out there for the Thursday night game where Cody Bradford will be starting his final game at home in Frisco, again, barring some playoffs in Frisco. And Mason Englert, we just talked about, and Zach Kent being promoted to AAA Round Rock. He went 5 innings in his first start, was fairly confident there. It is encouraging to see these guys have these nice starts at the end of the year because, the Rangers hitting prospects have done fairly well. We've seen, obviously, Josh Young. We've seen Ezequiel Duran come up big in some moments for the Rangers, like we saw him in this game, and hold his own pretty well at the big league level. Josh Smith didn't quite hold it as well as we would have hoped. Not nearly as much power, not nearly as much batting average, but defensively he looked really, really solid at third base, shortstop, second. Heck, even left field, he's looked okay. The on base, the walk rate was really darn good, striking out a bit too much, but he had some brilliant moments as well. We have also seen, like I talked about yesterday, Blaine Crim's historic month, hitting 5 home runs in 5 consecutive games, 6 home runs in that 5-game stretch, having an OPS be up over 850. That has been nice. We've seen Angel Acuña's having a good season. Evan Carter's back healthy. But the pitching had just not been there developmentally for the Rangers this year. And it didn't seem like they've been doing, anything that differently than what they did last year when they had a whole bunch of success. But it's just been really encouraging from a general perspective. And Cole Wynn's just complete obliteration of a year has been also a huge discouragement. I do think he's going to figure it out, but this year has been horrendous for him. It is, I don't know what's wrong with him mentally, physically. I'm sure there are 37 people watching every single frame of 1800 frame per second film of Cole Winn pitching, but whatever it is, I have confidence in the kid to figure it out. He was dominating Double-A just as recently as last year as a young kid. He is still pretty young. I think he will figure it out and end up being a serviceable big leaguer for several years for the Rangers. But this year has been a really discouraging note for the most part on pitching. By the way, I've learned a little bit more about Owen White and what's going on with him. It seems like they were just being extremely cautious with him. He is probably not going to pitch during the rest of the regular season. Maybe he'll get a little bit of work in the Arizona Fall League. Not entirely sure about that one, but it was enough, elbow wear and tear that it wasn't quite Tommy John, but it wasn't enough that they could feel like he was ready to pitch again. So they're just being extra cautious on that. I respect them doing that. I would have liked to seen him pitch a little bit more, but not at the cost of him having to have another Tommy John surgery. He's had a great season. He has been one of the few really bright spots for the Rangers. Same with Cole Ragans, making it to the big leagues. Now we'd like to see him have a little bit more success. Maybe he can turn that around in his last couple of starts at the big league level this season, but just seeing him make it there has been great. We've seen Bubba Thompson have some big moments, but I am all just completely... I don't know what I was ramping towards. It was just good to see some pitchers do well, some pitching prospects do well in a season that has been mostly disappointing for them. But I'm excited to see what Cole Ragans can do coming back up, being healthy. We'll see what this bullpen holds for Jon Gray if he can come right back off the IL. And this is the last game the Rangers have to face off against these stupid Astros until next year, when hopefully the Rangers won't be completely throttled by them every single time they play. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. Thanks again for making it your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season, which I believe starts tomorrow on Thursday. Yeah, the local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combined into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to do it for this edition, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.